Okay, here we are, a quick lap of my trails as they stand toward the end of 2020. We'll start out on what I call the strip, because it's just a little strip of woods, through the tight squeeze, around the cinder block chicane, back out into the field, across the bridge, setting the little kicker, setting the bigger kicker. Those trails are a work in progress, so we'll talk about them next year. Over the skinny. Ride the teeter totter, that's kind of rotten. And another little S-curve. Some trail improvement. Jump the stump. And then the sketchy stump ramp. All we got left. Woo. Alrighty. And that's a lap. Okay, now that you've seen the ride through of the trail, let's talk about it in some more detail. As you may have noticed, there's nothing too fancy on it. All of the features are pretty simple, but that's actually part of why I wanted to do this walkthrough. I'm hoping that it will maybe serve as some inspiration for anyone else who's looking to build some home trails. You don't need a ton of materials, you don't need to do anything that's going to be super time consuming. The smiles per hour on the trail build for this has been immense. I mean, these trails are a lot of fun. They're not real long. It didn't take very long to build anything, but I have a lot of fun with them. So, let's go ahead and get started. So this is the part that I call the strip, because it's just a little strip of woods. You can see I have some trail signs now. And this is the kind of tight squeeze. As you can see, I've hit it a few times. I don't love this, but I have gotten to where I ride it pretty well, so I don't have to, really slow down for it as much as I used to. So I'm probably going to leave it. I have thought about trying to clear kind of a ride around, but it's not a high priority. There's a whole lot of other stuff that I would rather do first. So that's kind of the first technical feature. Then we come into the cinder block chicane, so named because there were a lot of those here. So you can either kind of ride it as an S-curve around the outside here, trying not to hit the other cinder block, and then to the next set of trees. Or one little thing that I added after the initial build was just this little jump. Obviously pretty simple. Again, just 3 logs, a couple of cinder blocks that were, again, already sitting here, and it's a good little kicker. It probably needs to be moved a little bit that way, because it sort of sends you into that stuff, which is not ideal. But if you're skilled, you can make it work. I mean, it does mostly line up with where the trail goes. So, yeah, that's that feature. We'll move on. Okay, and this is kind of the final set of trees on the strip. The only thing that's really technically interesting here is that there are some roots down here below, and actually a few back here as well. So you have to kind of make sure you weave your way through those. But otherwise, this is a whole lot easier. This one's nice and wide. No problems getting through there. So not too much to say on that. So then we just come right through here. And this has actually been kind of a pleasant surprise. On a maintenance note, all of this ground cover that grew up here, that's pretty much as tall as it ever gets, and it seems to choke out all of the other weeds. So I basically haven't had to do any trimming on this section, which I kind of expected that I would. So that was awesome. Unfortunately, I can't take any credit for it. Alright, so originally the trail just kind of went straight back and looped around. This year I did start mowing some extra paths out through the field here, as you can see. And there's kind of a little drainage ditch right here. I don't know how well it'll show up on camera, but take my word for it, it's there. So that's a problem. It's kind of a pain to ride. You can go through it. The bike's not bothered by it. But I don't like to take the lawn tractor through it either. So I built this kind of little bridge, and it's the right width for the lawn tractor tires and plenty wide to ride a mountain bike across. Again, really simple. They're just some pressure treated 2x6s, and then I screwed another little piece of 2x6 underneath them to hold them together. Obviously, doesn't work perfectly. This one is kind of twisted over time, but they work, so I don't worry about it. Again, simple but effective. So moving along, we'll come back to that one on our way back out. This is actually, obviously this is a two-way trail, simply because I hadn't cut that much trail, so I kind of needed to take advantage of what I had, and so I have feature going both directions on this. Obviously, since it's just me riding it, that's not a big deal. So here we come to our next feature. This is just another little jump. You can see this was a piece of wood that was sitting in the building. I don't even remember where it came from, but it happens to be the kind of the right length and right width to make a fun little jump. And then once again, I have lots of cinder blocks here, so I went ahead and used one of those just to prop it up. And you know what? This is one of the most fun things that I've built. It's stupidly simple. I mean, literally the only thing holding it together is this old rusty nail that I didn't bother to take out, but that makes it impossible for this to slide that way. Obviously, not particularly safe, but again, it's just me. This isn't a public park or anything. Clearly, this feature would not fly in public, but again, simple. This was a 5-minute project. I took the piece of wood, I took the cinder block, I stuck them together, and bam, I have a mountain bike jump. So, moving on. And nothing too interesting here, just kind of going around the corner. And this is intentionally kind of open here because the next feature requires a bit of speed. Once again, we'll hit that one on the way back. Okay, and here's a little bit bigger kicker. So I do have some footage of this. I haven't edited. Yeah, easy for me to say. I haven't made a video out of it, but I do have footage, so maybe I will do that at some point. In any case, it's really a pretty simple little ramp. Just some 2x4s in a frame, and then some 2x4s going that way. This is actually the only thing, well, other than the little bridges. Obviously, I had to buy lumber for that. I also bought lumber for this because it was going to be in contact with the ground, so I didn't want it to rot. However, the planking on top of it is actually all reused wood from inside the building, and then a little piece of firewood down at the end, just to make the transition a little bit smoother. I don't love this one. I may at some point rebuild it a little bit. It's a little bit too steep for the length of it, so it's also really kicky, and I've crashed on it once or twice, which is not great because anything that's out here, where I'm riding alone, I don't want it to be dangerous. So as I've gotten used to it, so I might leave it alone, I might not. We'll see. But anyway, again, just a really simple little thing. It has been, fairly good for, kind of teaching me technique for taking kicky jumps. I have learned a lot from riding this. It's just not great. And I guess the other thing I forgot to mention, everything that is on this trail can be moved. So this is not into the ground. I can pick it up and move it if I need to. which I do in the summer because the grass goes quite fast, and so I need to mow this. And it's a lot easier to do that if I don't have a bunch of stuff in the way. Hope you can hear me over all of the grass rustling. So yeah, everything here can actually be moved on and off the trail really quickly, which is really nice for mowing. And then once we start building in the woods back here, we'll do some more permanent stuff. So yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about that one. And then out here, just the loop, nothing too interesting. Again, back there, going into the woods, those trails are kind of a work in progress, so not going to cover those this year, but something to look forward to. Alrighty, and here we are back at the little skinny to a really small drop. So as you can see, once again, really simple and really portable. All of this stuff, none of this is attached, so it can all be moved off of the trail. And once again, all reused materials. This was just a piece of plywood that I happened to have around. That was another piece of wood that just happened to be in the building, and a couple more cinder blocks. So it's not perfect because, again, since it's not attached, I guess it's at this end. It does rock a little bit, which is obviously not ideal. I don't really notice it that much while I'm riding it, so it doesn't bother me all that much. Every once in a while, if I get too close to one of the edges, it'll actually flip this completely off of the cinder blocks, which is a pain, but again, you know, it was not a lot of effort, so if once in a while I have to put the piece of wood back on, oh well. And also, this is pretty fun. It's long enough, I'm not sure exactly, this may be a 6-foot piece of 2x6. It's long enough to be challenging, but it's not, you know, super difficult. So yeah, another really fun, really simple little feature. Alright, and we are back to the teeter totter. So I did a video on this. You can see it's a little worse for wear. That is one of the downsides of reusing wood. I actually don't hate that though, because it provides a little extra challenge. I mean, this is not a particularly big teeter totter. I mean, it's just sitting on, I think, a 6x6. So it's not very far off the ground. There's not actually all that much motion when you ride it, but again, it's kind of fun. The rotten piece provides you something to avoid when you're riding, so really this ends up being, you know, about half the width of what it looks like. So that's kind of fun. This was actually kind of the inspiration for that jump, and the reason is, or the reason, you know, the way that happened was I would ride this and I would actually hit it fast enough that I would completely just jump over the end of the teeter totter and basically not let it rock at all. So I was like, well, you know what? This is a really simple little thing. I bet I could build one of those, and that happened. So again, not too much else to say about that one. At some point I might have to actually replace the piece of wood on top. And oh, the other thing, actually I should mention, if I were to do this again, I would use a longer piece of wood for this, because this one's short enough that, here again, sometimes if I hit it a little bit crooked, it'll actually tip the whole thing over. So not really what you want out of your teeter totter, but again, it's good enough to be fun to ride, and it's just me, so who cares? Alright, moving on. And so we are back to sort of the original loop here. We'll just cross the bridge, and another little S curve here. As you can see, it's kind of worn in pretty nicely. I wasn't sure. I thought this all might stay grass with just me riding it, but apparently I ride it enough that that wasn't a problem. One thing that was a problem was kind of running crossways through this section of the trail were a bunch of just like little indentations or ditches or something, and so they were not really all that much fun to ride. you know, it was really bumpy and not in a fun way. So I've actually done two different things to try to address that. Over along here, I just went through with a shovel and kind of knocked down some of the high spots and put the dirt from those into the low spots and smoothed it out, and that actually made a huge difference in how this rides, because that's, you know, that's a nice single track width and it's so much smoother. It's way more fun to ride. However, this is also generally how I bring the lawn tractor back onto the field here. So the fact that the other side was still all rough was kind of a pain, and it was a lot of work just using a shovel to do this part, so I didn't want to try to do the entire width that way. So what I ended up doing was found a cheap rototiller and ran it through, obviously all the way through here, kind of raked it out flat so that everything was a little bit more even, and then tried to pack it down as best I could. It's going to need a lot more packing, obviously, but I think it worked pretty well. We'll see. I haven't actually gotten to bring the lawn tractor back here yet, but walking on it feels a whole lot smoother, so I think it's going to be good. So I may do something like that elsewhere on the trails. There's a few other places where there's, you know, some unevenness like that, and so I would like to smooth those out as well. So this was kind of my test patch, and I'm pretty happy with it. So we're walking again. That I actually generally don't ride, as you can maybe tell, since there's no path worn through it. That's more of just an access trail to kind of get back behind the building and be able to get in and clean up. There was a lot of junk back in there. There actually still is, but there's a lot less than there was. So that's kind of just an access trail. I don't really ride it that much. So nothing too interesting to say about that. Here we are back to my nemesis, the stump. This is still working out pretty well. The ground around it has settled a little bit, so it sticks up a bit more than it did, but I still don't have too much trouble getting anything over it. The lawn tractor still clears, and if I had to now, I could come back and knock it down with the chainsaw a little bit more now that it's settled around it, but I haven't bothered because it's not causing a problem. So that is that. And then we will jump ahead to our final feature. And here we are back to our final feature. As you may have noticed if you watched the video where I built this, it looks a little bit different. And the reason for that is somebody came by and stole all of the wood I had piled up and knocked off the back corners of the stump. So not cool. Obviously I did rebuild it, and fortunately it's been left alone since then. I don't actually ride this all that much. It's kind of sketchy. It's a really steep ramp, sort of like what I was complaining about with the one in the back. So it's actually not that much fun, but it is kind of cool. At some point I'll probably move it back into the woods, so it's sort of out of the front lawn here. But for the moment, it's fine here, as long as nobody steals the wood again. And I guess give you a little bit of a side view here so you can see. It's got quite a bit of slope to it in a fairly short space. So, yeah, that's all of the features that are complete on the trail as of right now. Stay tuned. I have more stuff going on back in the woods back there, but like I said, that's not quite done yet, so that'll be for next year. Alright, thanks for watching.